What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com. My name is Sean Sheehan, joined again by Mike Pendleton today as we look ahead to PFL 9 2024, which goes down in the Anthem in Washington, D.C. in the United States on August 23rd. We have the featherweights and welterweights on show here after, I would say, a very, very good year for both divisions. You could argue that these are the two best divisions in the PFL right now. You could argue that the best fighter in the PFL is on show here. Who's that going to be? Maybe we'll reveal that in a few minutes. But I'm massively looking forward to this card. There's a lot of good stuff on the undercard as well, which we'll get to after we look at the top four fights. But Mike, how much are you looking forward to this card? I know we spoke about, and we previewed the last two cards as well. The first card on paper was good but not amazing. Turned out to be a good card. The second card, good on paper, but I think this is the best card on paper. We have, a couple of fights. Okay, we may have wished for different ones the way that the standings landed, but at the same time, still some top fighters, top guys on the undercard as well, and it's one to look forward to, isn't it?
Listen, first of all, always happy to be here with you. But secondly, I want to know whose sick joke it is to bring an Englishman, a man from the UK, to the country's capital of Washington, D.C., taking on a Hawaiian in the main event. I mean, we got Brendan Loughnane invading the capital, which we don't like to talk about here in the States after a couple of years ago. But listen, this card is fun, top to bottom. It's so much fun. And sure, we could have had different matchups, but in certain instances here. But I'm excited through and through for this entire card.
Let's get straight into it. So Kamaka and Brendan Loughnane, and I will call him Loughnane. I'll continue to, because Loughnane's an Irish name, and it's from like my part of Ireland. Every time I interview Brendan, I'm like, you pronounce your name incorrectly. Please change it. But I'm very interested in this fight because I often, when we start these previews, Mike, as you've probably guessed by now after the third time in, I like to look at the recent records, right? And I think it tells a lot. And you look at Kamaka, so you look at his record, and he's 14-5-1 draw. And you think, okay, that's a good record, but we've seen better. Let's put it that way. His last five fights, he's won them all. Last 7 fights, he's won 6 of them. And there's a draw in the fight previous to that. So since 2021, he said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fights and only lost 1 of them. That's the type of, I suppose, fettle that he is in. He was obviously in the UFC. A tough time there towards the end of it, as I said, with the draw and a split decision in the fight before it. Could very well have gotten another chance in the UFC. Didn't work out for him, and he's been on a great run since. And I think, speaking to Kai, watching him fight, he's a guy who, at this stage of his career, at 29 years of age, we spoke in the last preview last week about how people when they reach their primes and how they reach their primes. I feel like he's a guy who right now has reached his prime. Speaking to him, talking about, and I asked him about the likes of BJ Penn and his cousin Ray Cooper coming up, how those sort of guys, I suppose, molded him. I'm not sure, not from the Ray Cooper side, no one obviously, but from the BJ Penn side. And he spoke about it. He's like, he'd fighters coming through his house when he was young and all. So the point being there is, like, he knows what it takes. He knows that it's, you don't lick it up off the ground, as we'd say here now. You have to work for it. You have to go through things. You have to go through those losses to get those wins. And when you beat the likes of Carvalho, Jenkins, Corrales, and the rest, you have earned that. You've really, really earned it. And I think from his point of view, we'll get into Loughnane in a second. I love to see a fighter like Kai Kamaka, right? And I know a lot of people, maybe you're tuning in, maybe this is your first PFL of the year or ever, or in a while or whenever. And he mightn't be a guy who blows you away if you've gone back and watched a couple of these performances or look at his record or anything like that. Obviously a lot of 3-4 decisions in a row, but he's a very good technical fighter. He's become a guy who's very good defensively. His fights, to me, he's not a Diego Sanchez by any means in terms of excitement, but I get excited by his fights because of the way he fights technically. I know a lot of people don't, that's fair enough, but from my point of view, I really enjoy watching this man's progression, seeing where he's gotten to in his career, and seeing how far he can actually take it. Just on Kai Kamaka, Mike, before we move on to Brendan and the fight itself, it's been a great run for him over the last while, hasn't it? Have you been as impressed as I am?
Yeah, and even more so impressed with the fact that like he just doesn't care. But it's not like a Nate Diaz type of flip the bird, throw things type don't care. He has the best team around him, Extreme Couture and then family, right? He has so many people have either been part of the PFL or obviously, I don't know that there's going to be a better story. I know we're doing this in August, but I don't know that there's going to be a better story in MMA than Dan Ige, 4 hours notice. And what people don't realize, yeah, Kai Kamaka didn't fight on that night, so maybe you don't give him any credit. He fought the night before and then answered the phone 12 hours later to go corner him. That says so much about how dedicated to his team, his sport, all of this, how invested he is. And, you know, when you talk to Kai, one thing also, if you talk to Kai, you had the chance to, I had the chance to. When you talk to Kai, he is not someone who takes where he's been lightly, right? He makes it a point to say, hey, just so you guys know, I've never been released from any of my contracts. I've just fought all my contracts out. Now, if I can, and you're the host here, but if I can, I want to ask you, you talk to him for Sherdog. I talked to him for another publication. But I've got to ask you something that stood out to me that I ran with on the media call this week and just overall, because I think it's important. He said to me, fighting Brendan Loughnane, I'm going to say it the American way that he says it. That's okay. Right? Fighting Brendan Loughnane to him in this moment is more important to him than the championship. Yes, it's one step at a time, but for him coming into the PFL, beating a former champ, beating the face of the PFL, there could be a debate there, but I don't know who else you would put there. This to him is the bigger fight for Kai Kamaka, and I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
I think he said the same thing to me. I was very interested when he said that. And normally I would brush that off, but not with Kai. You know, he's the type of guy that puts thought into these things. And I was thinking, like, he explained, exactly as what you said there, he explained it, and I understand it. Like, and I understood it because I've heard people talk about this sort of thing before. And it's different in the PFL because it's, you know, there's a new champion every year. Maybe, okay, sometimes it's the same champion, but you ask Chris Weidman, right? What did he want to do when he came in as a middleweight? He wanted to beat Anderson Silva. You know, okay, he wanted to win the belt and all, but you ask Conor McGregor, what did he want to do? He wanted to beat Jose Aldo. That's what these people want to do. You ask a light heavyweight from 5 or 6 years ago, what did they want to do? They wanted to beat John Jones. You ask, you know, whoever it might have been, Francis Ngannou, who's company wanted to beat Stipe Miocic, whatever the case may be. That's the way it is. And this is, I suppose, an odd case of that, considering it's a seasonal promotion and all of that. But I do understand it, and I do understand. And plus, it gets you to the next level. It's funny with Kai as well, though. I asked him because he's the type of guy for anyone who's listened to a Kai interview or spoken to him, you'll know he's a guy who is a martial artist, right? And I asked him about the winning $1 million, what would that mean and all. And normally I would, you know, not buy it if someone says they don't really care, but I did buy it when he said it. You know, he was like, it's what's more important for me is to be remembered the way I want to be remembered. So to beat Loughnane would be something he's massively remembered for. And I understand it, and I definitely buy it. From Brendan's point of view, Mike, I'm going to throw this at you, because I spoke to him and he, you know, and I know he's kind of contradicted this a little bit, but he said this is his last ever PFL season. He doesn't want to do this anymore. He seems to be coming at a very different mindset to Kai, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like Brendan's a little fired up about facing a guy like Kai Kamaka. You know, I had shared with Brendan what Kai had said to, you know, both of us now about facing him, and he said that, you know, that means a lot to get respect from a veteran like Kai, but he seems very fired up. And for me, in conversation with Brendan, it continuously becomes about his experience with the PFL, his experience as a fighter. And not for nothing, we came into 2024 going, can't wait to see what this Bellator talent does in the PFL and how they adjust. And this is where the adjustment period happens, right? And the thing now for Brendan, it's Kai Kamaka just has to fight his fight. We don't have to worry about points, but neither guy has ever cared about points. So I think this is going to be an absolute banger. Maybe my favorite fight on all, and I feel like everyone's going to go back and be like, he said it about this one, he said it about that one. But I think when it comes to the pace and the action we could be seeing, I think it's going to be incredible.
Let's break that down for a second, and I feel like we could spend our whole half an hour here talking about this fight because I'm really excited about it. Like, what Kai has become over the last few years is this technical boxer, kickboxer. Let's put that. Can he wrestle? Can he defensively, offensively wrestle? Absolutely good on the ground and all of that. But I think that's at the top and bottom of what he is. You have Brendan Loughnane, who's a guy who usually has people wrestling him, wanting to take him down, not wanting, to fight on the feet. Now, he's actually very good at fighting those sort of fighters, but I don't see Kai Kamaka doing that. I see Kai Kamaka coming out and, putting skill for skill, as he said, martial artists against martial artists on the feet, seeing who can win. And Brendan Loughnane will love that. Like, I think Brendan is every bit as good a technical fighter as Kai Kamaka, but he doesn't fight as technically all the time, which isn't a negative it's actually a positive. Like, I think he's whether it's switching stances or coming in with like short elbows or big shots over whatever it might be, he takes risks to land big shots. And we've seen it with him against Ryoji Kudo, especially. He almost got knocked out in that fight, ended up winning a technical decision in the third round after a cut and all. Obviously lost to Jesus Pineda last year, but I really respect. Like, I've watched Brendan Loughnane since. Let me pull it up here on Sherdog. He fought Tom Duquesnoy in 2015. I was at that fight 9 years ago. Jesus, I've been doing this for a long time now, and I've known him for a long time before that. Obviously, he fought in Tough and everything, but I watched him live in that fight years and years and years ago. He's a guy, he's had a long career at this stage. 33 fights into it. At 34 years of age, but I think, again, he's at his best. I don't know who to pick in this fight. I think the one thing that's pushing me to a pick is this. I think there's a reason why people don't fight Brendan Loughnane on the feet. I think there's a reason why people don't fight him in that domain. And I think because he's very good there. And if you're Kai, a big problem with a lot of Kai's fights recently is there hasn't been a whole lot of scoring. And not to be the scoring or the judging guy again here, but if Loughnane lands that big shot in a round and Kai doesn't, we know who's going to win that round. It's going to be Brendan Loughnane. Does Kai have the power to take away those close rounds? Maybe not. Does Brendan? He does. Now, will he land those shots? That's another question. I think he will, and I think I'm gonna lean towards Brendan. Who's your pick here?
I'm gonna take Brendan as well. One thing we talked about, he said this week with all the media, he said that he feels like he couldn't go back to fighting 1 or 2 times a year. It would be too boring for him. And then he spoke to me. He said, he thinks that he didn't know he needed that time off until he got the time off. And I think he's just refreshed. Now, I'm not very good at my job or being a guest on here because I should have had this research, but I don't know if there's been a PFL champ who's knocked out every single person they faced through all the way through. But I know that in speaking to that possibility with Brendan, that's something he would love to do. I don't know that Kai Kamaka is the guy that he can do it to. I don't know that Kai, I know this. I know Kai is that much of an intelligent fighter to not put himself in harm's way. And look, a fight's a fight, so it can happen. So I want to say Brendan Loughnane by finish, obviously knockout or TKO, but I think I'm going to have to go decision.
I'll be honest, I didn't even give two second thoughts to a finish. I think this was definitely going to a decision, and we'll have a watch at the betting show. If if the over 1.5 or over 2.5 rounds is a good price on that, I'll definitely be taking that because I'm not sure who will win. As I said, I'm going for Brendan, but I'm pretty sure it'll go to a decision, but we'll see on that one. Let's talk about the other featherweight fight. It's not the co-main event, but it's the third fight down, and it's Gabriel Braga against Timur Khizriev. It's been an interesting few years. Obviously, well, interesting is the weird word I suppose to put it for Gabriel Braga. He got his chance in the PFL. Like, what a run he's been on over the last few years. Again, losing to Pinedo in the middle of it, but beat Justin Gonzalez, Bubba Jenkins. this year after beating Wade, Moraes and Pinedo, and we all know, about the, his father obviously passed away in the middle of all of that and everything as well. It's been a real tough time for him, and he's coming in against Khizriev. I think most people would argue he's got the toughest straw here out of everyone, and that's no disrespect to Brendan or to Kai here, but Khizriev obviously after coming over from Bellator, watched him fighting Richie Smullen, it was a relatively close fight, but Richie was on a great run at that time. He's a very, very good fighter, but then he beat Justin Gonzalez, beat Weichel before that, beat Brett Johns in a way that Brett Johns beats guys, and then Barzola last time out, and I have a lot of respect for Barzola, and I like Gabriel Braga an awful lot. I think he's a guy who made people respect his skills over the last few years, but I find it very hard to see him beating Khizriev. I think he can hit on the feet. He's unbelievable on the ground. Great when he gets on top. Not the biggest finisher in the world or anything like that. He's 12 decisions on those 16 wins. So, if Braga can get a chance, if he can survive, obviously, he has a chance in the feed. The problem is, not the biggest knockout artist in the world. 50% of his wins have been by knockout, but considering he hasn't been at the top level for very long, that's maybe not the best of records there. I think Khizriev will be able to get a few takedowns. I think he'll win the fight that way, and I think after the second takedown, let's put it that way, I think it'll be tougher for Braga to do anything on the feet. And I think Khizriev will start to win just the whole fight after that. What do you think, first of all, on that? But if there's anything else, any other tidbits you have about either guy before this fight?
No, I'm pretty much in total agreement with you. I think Timur is just going to do what he has to do to win. I would say if Gabriel Braga does have a chance, right, and this is just the easy way out of this, but he's going to have to, I think he's going to have to knock him out early. But again, is that there? Is it going to present? I don't know. And I don't believe it will. So I like Timur in this one. I also like him by decision. So, and here's another thing I just want to say, because we're picking decisions, and we're talking about a promotion that rewards finishes, right? But in the playoffs, you just do what you have to do to get the job done. But for those who are watching this, do not let the fact that Sean and I are maybe picking by decision, and it's not going to mean it's not a great fight. That is the one thing that I think PFL viewers kind of get caught up in, because there is a point system, because they reward finishes, that if it's not a finish, it's not good. No, there are going to be some great fights. If you can enjoy them outside of the PFL, you can enjoy them inside the PFL. Decisions aren't the worst thing, especially when we have the great matchups that we do on this card.
And it's, we spoke about it in the last preview we did, sometimes people take different tactics. Some people like to, I'll have a good 15-minute workout here. I won't take too much damage. And, I'm fighting again in 8 weeks or whatever it is. And other people are like, well, if I only have to fight for 20 seconds here and I can get the knockout, I've saved myself a lot. So, the weird thing about the two featherweight fights, I would rule that out. I think both of these fights, all four of these guys will be going out to fight as hard as they can just to win the fight. I don't think there'll be any tactics in terms of the seasonal tactics, if you want to put it that way, in these. Right. But two interesting fights, and I think whatever happens, you have an interesting finale, and we'll look forward and we'll preview that obviously later on in the year. Let's talk about the welterweights. The welterweight picture is a more of an odd one, I would say. You have arguably the two best guys in the PFL right now in Umalatov and Musaev on other sides of the bracket here. So, if you're a bit of a an optimist, you would say, well, if the two of these guys win and we see them in the finale, that could be an unbelievable fight. And maybe that will happen. But then you could say as well, they're, the opponents are tough here. Let's talk about Musaev and Ramazanov first, because obviously, look, as we know, this fight happened not too long ago. Musaev came in June to fight Ramazanov, and he destroyed him, basically. Now, coming into that fight, I picked Ramazanov. He'd been in one championship. I previewed all these fights. I really believed in him as a fighter, but Musaev showed that night that he's arguably the best welterweight in the world. That, in my opinion, that's what happened. And there's a lot of them out there, with, Bilal, obviously, and, Jason Jackson and Kuram Magomed and, others as well out there. It's probably the best division worldwide in the world. But that performance was just unbelievable against the guy. Like, if you were to just watch that fight, you'd probably think, Ramazanov's not that good, right? But he is. He is that good. And he absolutely destroyed him, finished Logan Storley before that. Even though I know he's fighting KSW and other places, to go through KSW the way he did, this guy is an absolute beast. And after the way the first fight went, it's hard to not predict him again. Now, I would say as well, I know there's been a lot of criticism, and I've spoken about it on the show before, and we've spoken about it even, Mike, in one of our previews. There's criticism of like rematches. One guy finished first in the table, one guy finished fourth, first fight's fourth. You can't blame the PFL for that. And I agree with some people, we don't want as many rematches. It's the way it happens. If this was any other sport, it's unfortunate, okay, that one guy destroyed another guy 2 months ago and they're fighting again, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Musaev, Mike, one of those guys that I think the PFL, I think all you can do here is highlight him and highlight how good he is and try to promote him as an absolute star. Do you think that's the way to go for them coming into this one?
I think for both fight, and we're talking about Musaev now, but I think this is why the PFL system works. And if you follow it on the end that you do and that I do, and you're involved in the way that you and I are, you realize that, okay, so it's not the other 3-letter promotion, the UFC, where these Russian fighters not only have to brand themselves as fighters, they have to brand themselves as a brand, talking, sponsorships, all that. The PFL literally just needs you to go fight and do your job. And that's what these guys do. And that is what Musaev does. And yeah, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to give my picks right now. I'll do it in a more eloquent way, but I want to see Shamil and Magomed. I do. Umalatov. I want to see that. I think we are going to absolutely find out who is, if not the best welterweight in the world, 2 and 3. And I don't think that's a stretch. I think this fight showcase, because, and for my money, the PFL does a great job with some of their other, with their fighter promotion, right? They don't, and I think that's the only thing a lot of people would say is missing is the character or the narratives or the storylines. Yeah, but that's the beauty in all of this. So why don't we just appreciate how damn good these guys are? Because Shamil Musaev is very damn good. So I think I'm super excited for this fight. We've already seen it though. And like you said, that's just the way it happens. But you know what the best thing about being on our side of this when rematches happen? If you are so convinced about a fighter, you can do exactly what I'm about to do, Sean. Sean, we've seen this fight already, and I have no reason to believe the result will change.
Indeed. Umalatov and Gracie then, obviously this is supposed to be Don Madge. And for a lot of people, they'll be happy because Gracie actually beat Don Madge in the last fight. Don Madge injured and Gracie steps in. So, I think that makes sense. At the same time, even though Gracie was very good in that fight, there's no doubt about it. He beat Dante Shiro as well over in Bellator last year. Lost to Yamuchi a couple of times around that. I just don't think his jiu-jitsu is going to be enough to beat Umalatov. Don't think he's going to beat him on the feet. Gracie has improved throughout the years. I think he's a good jab and stuff, but he's not at the level of the other 3 guys, I don't think. Gracie's never really been in a destruction or anything like that. He's been knocked out once against Yamauchi, and that was towards the end of the second round. Everything else has been a decision. I do think Umalatov will probably end up finishing him. I think he'll probably beat him up on the feed. Gracie will try to get the fight to the ground. I think Umalatov will be happy to go on top of him, to be honest, and land a lot of big shots. I think the lack of elbows might save him here. Might be a good thing, but for Gracie, but very hard to see past Umalatov. And you know what? I'm going to go for the finish. I'm going to pick an Umalatov finish. But what do you think in that one?
I think so as well. And I hope I don't get crucified for this, but I think Umalatov's my pick to win the whole thing. Not to give it, The man is clearly on a mission. And I think the fight that maybe the PFL wants, the fight that educated fans want, and the fight that casual fans will realize what they want is Magomed and Shamil. I'm so excited for the potential of that fight. I'm going to give in the theme of where we're going for this event being Washington, D.C., I'm going to just give very political answers. And if some of them are harsh, I'm sorry. I'm actually not sorry because I just think we got to just state the facts, and the facts are what they are. And I believe Shamil and Magomed are two of the very best welterweights. I think we've already seen the rematch, or we've already seen the first fight with Shamil. Neiman Gracie, I take nothing away from his season performance. I just think he's showing up at a time where Magomed Umalatov is really, really at his best performances. And who doesn't want an all-Russian affair in the championship? I know I'm for it.
That'll be an absolutely great fight. Let's touch on a couple of the undercards. I'm going to be a little bit biased here as well. I'm going to touch on the James Gallagher fight first. He's fighting Brian Zurcher, who's coming in for his second fight in the PFL. Look, he's a guy with a lot of finishes on his record. 7 finishes in his 9 fights. He can hit hard. He's good on the ground. And it's going to be a test for James Gallagher here. There's no doubt about it. You know, he's a big guy as well, 5'10" at the weight class. You know, James 5'9", so not that much of a disparity, I suppose. But I think for James, it's a very interesting one because, like, okay, me as someone Irish, I look at him maybe a little bit closer than a lot of people. He's not fought that much over the last few years, but when he has fought, he's fought well. You know, Patchy Mix is, you could argue, the best 135-pounder in the world right now. It's a great fight for 2 rounds until he got finished in the third. Came back, beat James Gonzalez, a close fight, put on a very good display against Leandro Higo, just a little bit off. And you're thinking maybe if James could give it another few months and come back. I think the big thing for James is he needs to fight regularly. And I'm glad that it's March since the last fight, and it's, 4 or 5 months. But still, that's better than what's been happening recently. I think if he wins this, it'll be massive for his career, and I really mean that. And people probably saying, this guy is, Zurcher's not the most distinguished guy or anything like that. He's a younger guy coming in, but at the same time, that has its pitfalls too. But I think this is a massive fight for James Gallagher, and I think he's a potential star for him as well, especially in Ireland if they're coming back. I think they need to get James winning. I'm glad they were able to get him out, and I suppose we'll see how it goes. I'll say it. They haven't lined him up against an easy fighter. But Zurcher is a finisher. He's a tough guy, a good fighter, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. What's your thoughts on James Gallagher? Because I know a lot of people, especially a lot of non-Irish people, they saw James Gallagher at the start and they're like, oh, he's a Conor McGregor wannabe and all this. And James will tell you himself, he was, when he was younger. But he was 17 years old, a young guy. James a lovely guy, a lovely family and all that. And I really do wish the best for him. I'll throw a bit of bias in there, but it'd be, who made a better man win at the same time. But I'm looking forward to seeing this. And I just hope James and Brian both put on good displays here.
Hold on, Sean. You said the non-Irish people. Sean, I am part Irish, all right? I know I may not look it.
Here we go.
I know. I am actually part Irish. I am Irish, Italian, and Puerto Rican. So I know all about, it's a very weird mix, and I have a very bad temper. But that's neither here or there. I think, good on James for acknowledging the early part of his career. And I absolutely agree with you. I just want to know what's next after this, right? Because it'll be August. Does he want to get another fight in? Should he get another fight in? Is there a look at the PFL season format? Is that something he's best suited for? We don't know. All I know is I'm very excited anytime James Gallagher steps inside any cage. This time it'll be the PFL Smart Cage. But also a fun veteran matchup in Tyler Diamond and Enrique Barzola. Anytime Ray Cooper. Hawaii came to take over DC, right? Ray Cooper, Kai Kamaka on the card. And we know Ray Cooper delivers fun fights, but I'm going to give a big one I can't wait for, Jose Perez. I mean, this is a guy who's deserved the call. He got the call, was supposed to fight in South Dakota. Here's a guy who's finally getting his opportunity at the bigger step up in competition, and he relishes it. I remember talking to him before South Dakota, and he is a guy who understands that, you look at his career and say, what do you mean, Mike? He's finally getting the call. 6-1. He's faced some very good competition elsewhere. And with that being said, now's the chance for Jose Perez not to test himself, but to prove himself. And I think this fight, he'll have the opportunity to do that, taking on Jesse Stern, who's a 22-fight veteran, 16-6. Like, it's not a walk in the park. So I'm very, very intrigued by that, and I'm very, very intrigued to see what Jose Perez could bring to the PFL. So, yeah, again, another action-packed card. Definitely some fighters to look forward to, throughout these playoffs on the undercards, and we have that here again.
100%. The Ray Cooper fight was one I wanted to mention as well, because he's a real beast of a fighter. No, he lost to Lorenz Larkin, which seems to be happening to a lot of up-and-coming guys over the last while. But, if you look at some of the names before that, we spoke about Jaleel Willis, obviously he fought a couple of weeks ago, Brett Cooper, Jesse Taylor, Tafik Musaev is in there as well from a good few years ago. This guy is an absolute beast, and I think he could be, he wins this fight, you probably put yourself into the next year's welterweight competition. Imagine if him, Musaev, Umalatov, and a few more are in that next year. That could be absolutely insane. But for Ray Cooper, at the same time, how many times has he been in there against a guy like this? Ask Mohammed or Magomed Karimov about that. Ask, Rory McDonald or even a few more about that, and come out with the hand race. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm definitely going to pick Berkamov, but like another guy I just want to mention as well, Luka Poklit. He's fighting Eric Alaquin, but Poklit is a guy, obviously fighting out of Ireland as well, but he went in there and he lost Logan Sorley obviously last time in an entertaining enough fight, but been on a great run before that, beat Feraldo and an in-camp before that. He's facing a guy now, who is lost to Tajan last time out in his PFL debut, but had a lot of finishes before that. Good test for him, but again, could be, as you said earlier, like a lot of these guys are fighting maybe for their place next year. The difference is the likes of Tyler Diamond, Enrique Barzola, the winner of that could very well be fighting for a place in the finale if there's an injury or something like that. So I'm very interested. I'm going to pick just to go to quick picks here. I'm going to go with Berkamov. I'm going to go with Poklit. Do you know what? I'm going to go with Barzola. Diamond will probably be the favourite there, but I like Barzola. I'm going to go with Gallagher. I'll go with Perez, your guy as well there. Who go on and give us your quick picks there on those fights.
I'm going to take Luca. I'm going to take Perez. Obviously, I'm going to take James because you don't think I'm Irish. And then I'm going to go against you. I'm going to take Diamond. I'm going to take Ray Cooper.
I like it. Everyone Irish, when they hear someone American saying I'm Irish, they're like, shut the fuck up.
Listen,
it's my duty.
I'm gonna literally finally do the 23andMe, and then I'm gonna be extremely disappointed.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't. It come out 100% Irish. It wouldn't matter.
When it comes back, it's gonna say 100% stupid. I'm like, oh, I thought this is to find out what nationality that was. Okay, all right, guess not.
If I did that, mine would come back like playing the national anthem or something.
Yeah, right. No, but listen, great cards. And I commend the PFL for putting together these cards, right? Because it would be so easy if if this was other promotions. I thoroughly believe that these other promotions would just throw on fillers, right? We see that sometimes where there's a big main card, and it doesn't matter if it's a fight night card or a pay-per-view card. Promotions will fill the main card and just, whatever, fill in the early card. And the PFL hasn't done that. They've given us multiple reasons to drag out these episodes and talk more about their events because there's more to talk about. So good on them. And with the pay-per-view series being launched, in October, they just announced that recently. Business is booming, man.
Business is booming indeed. Right. Thank you very much for everybody for tuning in. Mike, thank you for joining me. My name is Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and we'll see you all next time.